Join us in tonight's edition of Viewpoint on DBS television. In tonight's edition, we are going to be talking about the Anglophone crisis, or the crisis plaguing the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon, and seeing how the Vatican can broker peace in order to bring lasting solutions to the crisis. And to discuss about this topic, we are honored to have an online guest, Tala Caroline. She is a teacher, and she will be talking to us live from Bonamoussadi here in the economic capital of Cameroon, Douala. Good evening to you, Tala Caroline, and thank you very much for being part of us tonight.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening, viewers of DBS. I'm pleased to be here again. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mange Venashus. You will accompany us here into our studios. Good evening and welcome as well.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening to our viewers. It's another opportunity for us to share with them issues concerning Cameroon.
Let us have the first part of the show, that is the questions. 6:30 p.m. if you are just joining us, you're watching Viewpoint. In the first question, can the Vatican City succeed to broker peace in the ongoing crisis in Cameroon? Tala Caroline, I begin with you. Yes.
I really don't think 100%.
To a greater extent.
To a lesser extent, I think.
No, lesser extent. Mange Venashus?
Yes, the Vatican can.
Yes, the Vatican can do so. And in the second question, are factors fueling the crisis from home or abroad? Caroline?
I think from both parties.
Mange Venashus?
Yes, I share the same opinion from both home and abroad.
Let us have the debate. Can the Vatican City succeed to broker peace in the ongoing crisis in Cameroon? That is our first question in tonight's edition. And to a lesser extent, Caroline, you think that no, they cannot. So what are some of the points to support your own point of view?
Okay, Vanessa, since we are talking about the Vatican, I'll start by quoting some scriptures. When we look at our Bible, it says that in Romans 13, verse 1 to 2, let every person be subjected to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. Therefore, whoever resists authority resists what God has appointed. And I will link this up, even though one of our leaders had once misquoted this scripture, and I will link it up to Proverbs 29 verse 2, which says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Now, going back to the Vatican, I would say, the Vatican, via the Catholic Church in Cameroon, could mediate between the militants and the state, considering the fact that the crisis, Vanessa, the crisis is growing deadlier by the day. You see that? But lo and behold, you realize that clergies have expressed clashing views on the key issues. The Catholic Church, representing nearly a third of Cameroonians, could be an arbitrator, according to me, could be an arbitrator. But they have taken divergent positions on the crisis. So, talking about the Vatican, I want to link the Vatican to their representative in Cameroon, who are the Catholic Church. What the church needs to do is bridge its divides and stand in one voice. They should project a position of neutrality and work with other trusted actors and denominations to mediate between the Anglophone leaders and the Cameroon government. But unfortunately, the church, like I said before, have divergent views. And the church, lo and behold, as I think, is the country's strongest institution. And you look at it in the setting of Cameroon, they operate in a dense network of schools and hospitals. Thus, they should have a role to play. But wait a minute. To an extent, if they are not united, if they're not speaking one voice, they can't do anything. I equally think that some of them might not be successful in the sense that when the fear of standing up to speak and being looked upon as a black leg or as a traitor to the government makes some of them to shy away and just remain neutral. But that's not the case. So saying that the church can really do something, we have prayed. Is it by prayers? We need them. The only way they can do something is by standing together with a united force, with one voice, and joining other actors and other denominations like the Presbyterian Church, the Baptist Church, and you can name them, to intervene in this matter. That's my view.
You thinking that the Vatican cannot actually broker peace in the ongoing crisis in Cameroon to a lesser extent? Mangavina shoes. In her point of view, she raised the fact that as long as the church does not stand as one, as long as the Vatican City does not actually merge with other church denominations, the fact that they could only pray to resolve this crisis, you rather think that yes, the Vatican can succeed to broker this peace?
Yes, Vanessa, when we talk about the Vatican, it's true, you cannot dissociate the Vatican from the Catholic Church in Cameroon. You cannot dissociate. But then when we are talking about it, remember, it is not a church kind of thing that we are talking here. No. The Vatican is a state on its own. And the Vatican is operating, when we're talking about in the steps to broker peace in Cameroon, they're talking about another state. It is the state of Vatican that is dealing with the state of Cameroon. Remember, bilateral ties exist between the state of Cameroon and the state of Vatican. Now, we are talking about states that are operating in that bilateral cooperation that wants to come in and help. The Catholic Church talks not as a state. The Catholic Church talks as a church, as a body that has the moral duty to prone rectitude, to prone justice, to prone what is right, to condemn killing. That is the role of the Catholic Church in this crisis. The Catholic Church does not talk to the government of Cameroon as a state. No, the church is not a state, because the church goes beyond the boundaries of the states. If you want to talk about that, there are other countries in the world that do not have this bilateral relationship with Italy or with the Vatican. The church cannot go into that to talk about it. When you listen to church leaders talking, they are talking like people who want to make sure that her citizens or her Christians, her members reason, because those who are involved in this crisis, they are also members of this church. But when you look at what happened with the Vatican City, with the state of Vatican, the state of Vatican sent the Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin. He came to Cameroon as a diplomat. He came to Cameroon as Secretary of State of the State of Vatican. He did not come to Cameroon as a cardinal. No, he did not come to Cameroon as a priest. He did not come to Cameroon as a Catholic Christian. No, he came as a diplomat to meet another diplomat, perhaps the president of Cameroon. And being, having two responsibilities as a church leader, that is why he came to carry out his church duties in the church province of Bamenda. That was what brought him. But then, as a state diplomat, he met another diplomat, the head of state. And that is why they were discussing bilateral relations, issues, not discussing church issues. Paul Biya is not representing the church in Cameroon. The president represents the state of Cameroon. And like the Vatican did, that is how America could as well do. Because if we doubt the potentiality of the state of Vatican in solving this crisis, we can as well doubt the potentiality of France. We can as well doubt the potentiality of the United States in solving the crisis. Yes, all other countries. But if we place them on the same line like other countries that they share cooperation ties with the state of Cameroon, they can broker peace.
All right, Mangavena shows like the Vatican or like other nations, they have always expressed the wish to see that the crisis come to an end. They are just expressing that they want to see, but what have they done concretely to broker peace between the two parties?
Correct.
That is what we want to know.
When we talk about the state of Vatican, we know that it operates not in the same manner like other states. The state of Vatican operates in such a way that, they address who are her citizens. Because when you look at the state of Vatican, it crosses boundaries. Where there is a church, the state of Vatican has a say to her members. And the state of Vatican does not go in. That is the only state in the world that does not have a standing army. That's the only state in the world that does not have a standing army, which means what they do is to preach peace. And when you listen to Cardinal Pietro Parolin, when he came to Cameroon, when he went to Bamenda, he had one message: peace and reconciliation. I don't think US will come and start telling us that we should reconcile. I don't think the France will come and start telling us that we should reconcile. That is their manner, their approach, their diplomatic approach is to preach peace and reconciliation. That is why they cannot talk of anything about, because they have to condemn war. Because if they talk of war, when states are in cooperation, look at what happened in Central Africa. Rwanda, that is in bilateral relationship with Central Africa. Russia, that is in bilateral relationship with Central Africa. They had to send troops to help a neighboring state, a broader state that is in crisis, to confront the terrorists, to confront those who have taken arms against the state. It is the same issue that we have in Cameroon. We have some citizens who have taken arms against the state of Cameroon. Vatican does not have a standing army that can help Cameroon state to fight the secessionists. So what they need to do is to make sure that they preach peace, so that both parties, the belligerents, so that they can see the voice of peace, the voice of reason, and solve their crisis through reconciliation. That is why they cannot talk about any other means. The step they have taken is to send the Secretary of State to come to Cameroon, talk with the state of Cameroon, that the state of Cameroon should reconcile with Cameroonians who have taken arms against the government. And that is the step they have taken. When this diplomat went to Bamenda, he told the separatist fighters that they should divorce from the gun and embrace reconciliation. That is their own modus operandi, to preach peace, to preach reconciliation. And they could not, because they cannot support Cameroon in any other form, perhaps taking the gun to fight them like Russia did in Central Africa, like France is doing in Mali, Rwanda is doing. Also, their own way is to make sure that they preach peace and reconciliation, Vanessa.
Okay, Mange Venashu, so
But
you
I
think that
equally
by
think
preaching
that
peace and calling for reconciliation or dropping arms, they can broker peace in Cameroon. That said, let us take the second question. Are factors fueling the crisis from home or abroad? Caroline, I get back to you. You think that factors fueling the crisis are from both parties, from home and abroad. So before you get to these questions, maybe you may have a reaction to what Mange Venashus just said.
Oh yeah, I was about saying that it's true that the Vatican state does not have an army. They are out to preach peace, preach reconciliation. But I want to look at it in the sense what is happening since this crisis started. Yet nothing is being done. It's not about talking. We're tired of being talked to. That's what I'm saying. The problem now is, what is the government doing? If you invite someone from outside to come and help you solve a problem and you are not willing to solve the problem, the person will not have anything to do. The person will not have a role to play. So I think that apart from the Vatican coming to see if they can help, other people have been coming from the start of this crisis. And yet we're not seeing any solutions.
Factors following the crisis are from home and abroad.
Okay, looking at I want to think that both and abroad are be massively blamed. I think this crisis broke out as a clash between the two factors involved. One, fighting for the right of a marginalized minority, and the other, fighting for the powers in place and for the one and indivisible Cameroon, as we all know. The crisis has become bigger than we expected. We have forces from home, we have forces from abroad. If I want to think that if the government had not added what we call fuel to the already existing flames, we will not be where we are. When you look at the crisis now, it sounds like COVID-19 that we hear every day new cases, every day new cases. What is the government doing? I think that the government should look into the crisis with wisdom. From its genesis, it should look from its genesis. Because if the government had played a vital role from the outbreak of this crisis, those from abroad will not even have a play. Those from within will not have a from home will not have a play. But we are still saying, I'm still saying that abroad they are fueling because they are know what is happening. They're there with their families. They're instigating these young boys whom we might not even see. They might not even know what they are doing. They go out there, they get killed. The military as well. Everybody who is killed is an equal Cameroonian. So be it from the military, from the other factor, they are all casualties. They are all souls. They are all Cameroonians. It pains. All we need. Oh, the question is, who really is to be blamed? So look, from home, from abroad, I also think that the government should come in as a third party. Abroad, government.
All right, you in your point said the government is adding fuel to the crisis. So how has the government helped to degenerate the crisis? That your point wasn't clear on that.
So what I'm saying here is this. Remember that when this crisis just started, like I said before, people didn't fight for nothing. They all had their different views. While one party was fighting for a marginalized minority, others are fighting for the state, which is correct, to preserve their state and for the one and indivisible Cameroon. But at one point, where the problems looked into as they were supposed to be looked into, but rather it escalated to using weapons, war against fire against fire, guns against guns. Which to me, that's not how it was supposed to be. And I think that if the government had looked into this, those forms would not have intervened this long. Those forms would have already agreed on putting down their arms.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Mangavenashus, you equally think that factors from home and factors from the outside have contributed to extend the crisis?
Of course, Vanessa, we know that the crisis is being, masterminded from out of the country. And when you look at them, that's why I call them from home and from abroad. From abroad, these are Cameroonians, perhaps, like somebody said, who left Cameroonian the wrong way, who left Cameroon the wrong way, and are out there and think that they want to blame their predicament on the powers that be. That is why they think that the powers that be should give way. These are Cameroonians who are out there. They are living in a well-civilized, developed society, well-cultured society, but have decided to make our own home society unbearable. Unbearable because they think that they can use force to drive across their point. Their point which could be genuine. Their point which is, not could, which is genuine. Because somebody said history, once it occurred, there's no way you can ever wipe it from history. If you like, turn the whole world upside down, history of Cameroon will ever remain. That at one point, there existed a people called the Southern Cameroonians. At one point, there existed a portion of Cameroon that was known as the English-speaking Cameroonians, the Anglophone region. At one point, there existed part of Cameroon that was called the French Cameroon. Now, history had it that those two decided to merge. And those who are bringing up the point are of the opinion that the English-speaking Cameroonians, which is the minority, happen to have been marginalized. That is a historical fact which no one can ever deny. How are they selling their point across is what matters. They would think that selling their point across with violence is what will make, the world, the entire nation to hear their point, which is wrong. Violence does not solve a situation. Madame Caroline started by defining, telling us that violence begot violence. Once you go by violence, you meet violence. I think that if they had used the right method, everybody has been talking of the right method. What is the right method? The right method is change the status quo. How do we change the status quo? We change it through the political ballot. The electoral system in Cameroon gives way for those out of the country, those in the diaspora, to also vote. When you look at those who are registered in Cameroon, in the electoral registers, you discover that we don't have up to 7 million Cameroonians, a country that we count close to 25 million Cameroonians. If 7 million are only registered, which means it is the 7 million that decide or that determines the fate of the country. It is high time we called on these, our brothers out there, to register massively in the electoral registers. Turn the table around through your ballot paper. Go to the polling stations, vote out the regime. That is what civilized democracy, like where they are living, that is what they do. We have the situation in America. Everybody was climbing, Trump is outspoken, Trump does this, Trump does this. And what did the American people do? They voted him out of office. Vote the regime out of office. That is the legal way. That's the democratic way of selling across your point. It is the regime that marginalized or that did not recognize you, have your value, as you are saying. Vote them out. And a new regime would come in. Maybe they may see your point.
But this minority you're talking about, so how would the minority vote the regime out? Because they only constitute a 2% of of part of the population.
Vanessa, that is in geographical representation.
Yes.
You would not tell me that those from the other 8 regions cannot understand the genuine points of the Anglophone.
But how many of them do understand?
Which means if we go through elections, that is why we call them elections, as this is a secret ballot. You don't know what I'm going in for. You don't know. During the 2011 presidential elections, Vanessa, it was purported that where the head of state voted, they had 11 votes of those who voted the opposition within the ranks of the presidency. Don't think that it is everybody who is with the government that supports the government. And even so, in our Cameroonian setup, we have members who are in the government, government ministers who are of the opposition party. Do you think that these opposition ministers will not vote the government out if they have the opportunity, the normal democratic, way to carry out things? Now we come back home. Those who are foiling the crisis from home, like Caroline was saying, these boys, they sold to them an idea of an independent state that will liberate them, and they took it without reasoning. Those who are selling this idea, where are they? They are living a peaceful life. Their children are going to school. They are going about their businesses. They are going about their daily activities. Then they will sit back and tell you, lock down the region for 1 week. Lock down their activities. No child should go to school. And you go about doing that. Who is deceiving who? I think that once you are foiling the crisis from back home, think of the consequences too. Are those who are out there, are they suffering the same like you are suffering? If they are doing, then I think that we can go ahead with it. But if they are not doing, I would rather think that we should stop the crisis from home, and those from abroad will not come home and foil the crisis, Vanessa.
Let us go back to Caroline. Probably she is still with us. What should be the take-home message then as far as this crisis is concerned? What could you propose as the absolute solution to the crisis? From there, we're going to end the show.
Okay, Vanessa, I would propose that the government has a strong role to play. Even the people in the English-speaking or the Anglophone regions of Cameroon, they have a great role to play. If they decide to stand unanimously and say no to this crisis, to the minds of these young boys, of the next generation, tell them of war. The after effects of war are even worse than the war itself. They're not going to school, who is losing? They're not going for their classes, who is losing? I think that from home should clear no crisis. They should put a stop to this crisis, because if they unanimously agree, even the help they are getting from abroad, they will not accept it. Even the help they are getting from abroad, they will not.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and that those back at home should consider the consequences of this crisis. They keep on foiling. That said, we've come to the end of today's edition. Thank you equally, Mange Venashus, for contributing, and to you, our televiewers, thank you very much for your kind, keen attention. Do stay tuned to DBS Television and take the rendezvous for tomorrow. God willing, we will be there.
Coronavirus is not an imagination or an invention. It is a real threat that spares no one. We are already counting so many casualties the world over. The situation is serious, and we